Imagine a normal guy. No millions, no connections, no giant company. He didn't even have his own factory. But one day, he walked into a kitchen, grabbed a waffle iron, and created a shoe sole that changed the world forever. Today, almost everyone on Earth knows the Nike logo. Athletes wear it, billionaires wear it, rappers wear it, football and basketball superstars wear it. And the company itself is worth tens of billions of dollars. But the craziest part is, it all started with a guy who simply hated losing. And today, you're about to hear the full story of how Nike was born and why one old waffle iron became the symbol of a revolution. Phil Knight was born into an ordinary American family. As a kid, he didn't look like a future business genius. He wasn't a superstar. He wasn't rich. And nobody could have imagined that one day this guy would create one of the biggest companies in the world. But there was one thing that obsessed him his entire life: running. Phil loved sports. He spent hours training, running, and dreaming about becoming faster. But back then, American running shoes were terrible. Heavy, uncomfortable, slow. Athletes constantly got injured. The shoes absorbed sweat, became heavier during races, and slowed runners down. And one day, Phil had a thought. What if someone created shoes faster than anything that already existed? That single idea changed history. In college, Phil met his track coach, Bill Bowerman, and that meeting changed the world forever. Bowerman was obsessed with speed, completely obsessed. He constantly experimented with running shoes, cutting them apart, resewing them, destroying pair after pair. Sometimes athletes would arrive at practice and find their shoes sliced open because Bowerman wanted to test a new idea. He didn't care how they looked. He cared about only one thing: how to make athletes faster. One day, Bowerman said something that became the foundation of Nike. Lighter shoes make faster runners. And that's when the real experiments began. They had no big money, no laboratories, no technology. Only crazy ideas and massive belief. After college, Phil traveled to Japan, and that's where he saw something that changed everything. Japanese running shoes were cheaper and better than American ones. At the time, giant brands controlled the American market. Trying to compete with them sounded insane. But Phil took the risk. He made a deal to sell Japanese shoes in America. No office, no team, no money. He literally sold shoes out of the trunk of his car. Imagine that. The future founder of Nike, driving through parking lots, selling sneakers by hand. But slowly, people started noticing something strange. These shoes were better, lighter, faster. And athletes started buying them. That's how a company called Blue Ribbon Sports was born. At first, Phil worked almost non-stop. During the day, he had a normal job. At night, he packed shoe boxes by hand, answered calls, managed orders, and drove across cities trying to convince stores to trust him. Sometimes he barely slept. Sometimes he thought the company would collapse completely. But he refused to quit. Because deep down, Phil believed they weren't just building shoes. They were building the future of sports. But the real revolution came later. One morning, Bill Bowerman was sitting in his kitchen with his wife. He stared at a waffle iron. A normal kitchen waffle iron. And suddenly, a crazy idea hit him. What if a shoe sole had the same pattern? The waffle shape created incredible grip on the ground. It was lightweight, flexible, perfect for running. Bowerman became so obsessed with the idea that he started pouring rubber directly into the waffle iron. Yes, a real kitchen waffle iron. And it ended in disaster. Rubber melted everywhere. Smoke filled the house. The waffle iron was destroyed. His wife was furious. But Bowerman didn't stop, because he realized something. He had just created something revolutionary. That's how the famous Nike waffle sole was born. And it changed running forever. Athletes started performing better. The shoes became lighter, faster, different. People started hunting for them. And then came another breakthrough. The company needed a new identity, a name powerful enough to compete with the biggest brands in the world. And then came the word the entire world knows today: Nike. Named after the Greek goddess of victory, perfect, short, powerful, unforgettable. But the funny thing is, Phil Knight didn't even like the name at first. He thought it sounded strange. Now imagine another shocking fact. The Nike logo, that legendary swoosh, was designed by a college student for just $35. $35. At the time, nobody imagined that symbol would become one of the most recognizable logos in human history. But even after creating Nike, success didn't happen overnight. The early years were brutal. The company was constantly close to bankruptcy. There wasn't enough money. Banks pressured them, competitors were massive, and many people told Phil he was going to fail. At one point, Nike was growing so fast that the company almost ran out of cash completely. Phil later admitted he often lived in fear. Fear of losing everything. Fear of debt. Fear that one bad decision could destroy the company forever. But Nike had one special power. They thought differently. They weren't just selling shoes. They were selling the feeling of victory, dreams, speed, belief. And that changed everything. Then came the moment that turned Nike into a monster. Michael Jordan. At the time, he was just a young basketball player, and almost nobody believed working with him would become historic. In fact, Jordan originally wanted to sign with another brand, but Nike took the risk anyway and created Air Jordan. The world exploded. People stood in massive lines. Sneakers became culture, a status symbol, an obsession. Stores sold out instantly. Kids dreamed about owning Jordans. And suddenly, Nike wasn't just making sports shoes anymore. It was creating identity, lifestyle, culture. And that was the moment Nike stopped being just a sports company. It became part of pop culture itself. Soon, the company signed some of the biggest athletes on earth. From basketball legends, to football superstars, to Olympic champions. The swoosh became more than a logo. It became a symbol of ambition, of winning, of never giving up. Today, Nike is an empire, billions of dollars, the world's biggest athletes, global power in sports, one of the most recognizable brands on earth. But the craziest part of this story is, it all started with two people. One guy selling shoes from his car, and one coach who destroyed a kitchen waffle iron trying to create the perfect sole. Sometimes the biggest companies in the world aren't born in expensive offices. They're born in garages, in kitchens, and inside the minds of people who refuse to quit. And maybe right now, somewhere in the world, there's another person with a crazy idea that could change everything the same way Nike once did. If you want more incredible stories about brands, billionaires, and people who change the world, subscribe right now. And comment below, which brand should I make a video about next?